Folks, in this video, I'm going to walk you through how to use the image that is being provided for the various workshops that we are going to test from here on. So as you can see, the image is packed under the name BEAD 2020. You can either download it from the Dropbox link that I'm going to send through email now, or alternatively, you can come into the classroom and then copy the image from by borrowing the hard disk from one of us. Okay, so this is generally how the image is to be distributed. So there are two ways to start, and I'm going to walk you through that. The first thing is to check the setup. So if you look into the settings, you can see that there is this systems tab, and you should have allocated some decent 10 to 16 GB dedicated to this image, and you please make sure that you have at least 4 CPUs dedicated. My machine has got 12, and I'm dedicating 1/4 of the CPUs for us to be able to run this virtual image. So that's something that you got to test up front. Mostly it is easy to start the image when you click on the start. In case you have trouble starting it, might happen because if your chipset is very different from what we have been using in the classrooms, then you'll have difficulty starting it. So at that particular situation, you have to come down and just ask for a headless start. Then of course, once you start it, you should be able to run it in a slightly different way. So these are the things to notice when you want to start the virtual machine. So now that I've spoken about all the basics, let's get started. So when you click on the start button, you can see that the image is being completely turned on. And it starts. This is generally one tip that you find useful, because sometimes you may have to drag and drop files from Windows operating system into the guest and so on and so forth. On such cases, you come to the shared clipboard and choose bidirectional, so that you can go from Linux to Windows and back from Windows to Linux. Also for the drag and drop, make it bidirectional so that you can push files sometimes if you have to. So you have a test file somewhere in the Windows operating system, you would like to use that, it's easy for you to drag and drop. So these are the two things. And normally there is the guest additions for font and full screen is already installed on your image, so I don't think you have to do anything additionally to enable them. So when you start the image, the first thing that happens is you're shown up a browser, and it talks about the current configuration of the system. So as you can see, there's a worker node, there's a manager node, all of them are mapped to a particular IP address. So as mentioned in the classroom, this is a pseudo cluster. Now you can close the browser at any point on time and open the browser using the browser link, which is given on the top of the system bar. As you can see, applications connect you to the different applications. The folder structures are given here. You can jump into any point or any folder position using the shortcut. Most of the time we work on the home folder, which is /home/Cloudera for this image. And of course, these are the shutdown menu and things like that. So I'm going to start the browser first. And generally what I would like to do is this particular image, for instance, is using Cloudera Manager. So it is important for me to see if all the services are running fine and healthy before I even attempt to do anything with my images. So for that, in the browser, you will see that you have a bookmark called Cloudera. So you may have to click on that, which allows you to get into the first page. There is a default username and password for this particular dashboard. The username is Cloudera and the password is password. You're supposed to fill in them for you to start using the Cloudera Manager machine. So let's wait for the page to get started, and then I'll show you how to do it. So you can also notice that in order for you to run a Cloudera in a desktop, it will require you to have at least 8 GB. 32 is good, 16 is okay. And you need at least 2 CPUs for you to be able to run this pseudo cluster. Okay, so those are the other things to note. And you see that the advanced features that we are going to use inside the Cloudera Enterprise Edition or all trial edition, they only work for a few days. But I think with reference to the course, we don't need anything specific to commercial Cloudera. We're going to stick on to the open source tag, so that's fine. And notice the remark that it needs at least 10 GB of RAM. So that's the reason I have dedicated 16 to this image. Okay. And of course, two virtual CPUs. So I'll pause here. And you see, if it is the first time I'm using it, it asks me for an agreement. I'm going to agree. The username is Cloudera and the password is Cloudera. So I can remember it every time so that I don't have to log in. So I can click on login page. It gets me to the services, and you can see that some of them are running, some of them are not. So a better idea is to restart everything. So you can see that these are the services currently installed in the system. So we have HBase, column family NoSQL, HDFS for file dump, Hive the older query language, Hue the dashboard editor, Impala the Cloudera specific search engine. There is also an inbuilt key value store for us to try. Oozie is the workflow management tool. I've upgraded the machine to Spark 2. We can have a Spark client or a Scoop client, one or two. Yarn is the workload manager and resource negotiator. Zookeeper is the service checker. So these are all the services that are currently installed in this virtual box. And for you to be able to make sure that all the services run properly, you got to go to the Cloudera Quick Virtual Machine, scroll down, and pick the restart button. So this will help you to restart all the services. So this is going to take like 5 minutes. So I stop recording here and get back once the services are run. So when you restart it, you can see that it is going to bring down all the current services and start up the new services as well. So I stop here and I come back once the restarting is over. Okay, so the next thing is when the server is restarted, you will see all the services are coming back in green. So don't worry about the refresh. Okay, so let it happen. And I'm going to just restart just in case so that you can see what's happening in the meanwhile. So I'm going to minimize this browser and walk you through the other tools. Most of the time, you will need two. One, you will need the Eclipse workspace. Two, you will need the terminal. Of course, we know the browser is this one. So I'm going to go ahead and then create a Scala project to see if the code works and also to show you that it's sort of clean for you to create Scala codes. So when I double click the Eclipse project workspace, it's going to open up the folder in the default location /home/Cloudera. So if you look into the Cloudera, the workspace is the default place where it creates all the project. Okay, so we can revisit this once we have created a test project to see how the code runs. So the services are restarting, as you can see, and the workspace is up. So there's an old project here which was done when I had imported the previous version of Hadoop. So I'm not going to run this. I'm going to create a new project to show you how the codes work. So first thing is we'll create a Scala project and then test it. So right click, new, Scala project. So you can give any name. So I'm going to call this a Scala demo. And you have to use the default JRE. So if you want to see what the JRE is being configured, you click on the configure JRE. It'll show you that it is pointing to the user Java 8. This is the upgraded version, so please make sure you pick up this Java 8. So say apply and close. And so for some reason it says level 6. Let's configure that as well. So compliance should always be 1.8. So apply that and close as well. So that is fine. Okay. So then you can see that you are fixing your JDK at 8. You are connecting it to JDK 8. And then that's pretty much for getting started with the Scala project. So and then you say finish demo. So these are the key steps to create a Java project. So if you want to walk through what you have done, you have created a Scala project. It is pointing to the Scala libraries 2.12.3. It is pointing to the JRE, which is Java 8. It has got a source folder. So the next thing that you would like to do is to create a folder. So let's say you're going to create a package called sample. Okay? So because we want to try and see if the Scala codes work. So when I say sample, it creates a sample folder. And then when I create a Scala object, okay, so I'm going to call this as a demo app. You can call it anything that you want. Okay, so I'm calling that as demo app here. And I say finish, you can see that it creates a Java Scala object with the name demo app. Of course, you will not know what this language is trying to do and how is it creating libraries, but as of now, just assume that it's like a normal programming language like your Java and C++. I'm going to convert this into a Scala application by using extend app. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in certain new codes. Okay, so what I've done here is demo app, extends app, and I'm trying to write a very simple function which says map wisdom to, and then print the word wisdom. So the moment I say words wisdom, it's going to go to this simple predicate which points wisdom to the state of being wise. Okay, so very simple hello world kind of print statement. So if you want to run this, you select the file, you right click and say run as Scala application. You'll immediately see your answer inside the console. So this basically tells you that Scala codes can work inside the Eclipse. So the first part is done. The next part is for you to be able to see how to run your Spark services, right? So now that all the cluster has started successfully, you're good to go. So when you say close, you can see that it takes a while, but it refreshes all the memory. If you want to see what are the files inside, you open a new tab and you click on the Hue browser. So this is going to list all kind of file query and any other kind of editors that you want to work with. So again, if it prompts you for username and password, it is Cloudera as usual. So there are many icons, as you can see. I'm interested on the current documents, not the query part of Impala. So I'm going to go to the menu and select documents. So immediately you can see that it shows you all the current documents. So suppose you want to see what's inside the stocks.txt. It's a very raw file. It's got plenty of content inside it. Okay? So some metadata and so on and so forth. So it's a very simple file dump actually. And you want to see what's stored inside, we can actually use this to do some line testing. Okay, so if you look at there's some 20 pages, so roughly around 2000 lines, this piece of code. Okay, so let's see how this is going to work. It's just a file dump from a file page. Okay, so there was this Hadoop user book. I basically used the GitHub and then complaint. You can actually do a simple file yourself. Okay, so you can go back to Cloudera. What you can do is just go back to the flow here, and then you can say you want to create a new file. Okay, so just say new file and call this as test.txt. Okay, that's fine. And what you can do is you can basically open it and then type in anything that you want. So for instance, I'm going to say this is a test file and there's some content inside. Okay, so I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I'm going to save that file. Okay, so I have a file with the name test.txt as well. So let me go back to the Cloudera folder. As you can see, you have many files. You refresh it. You have the test which is done as well. So if you click on the view file, you'll see the contents inside it. You can again edit it, you can download it, you can do a lot of interesting things here, but I'm going to stop here. So now that the services are running, okay, they are up and running, the file browser has created a file which is test.txt. Let's try to create a Spark job to count the number of lines, for example, in this project. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to the workspace here. You know that this is the place where I create projects, right? So I'm going to create a new project here. I'm going to call this as Spark Demo. Okay. So inside the Spark Demo, I have to put my code in some place. So I'm going to create a folder and I'm going to call that as SRC. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a build. Okay, so I'm going to create an empty file. I'm going to call this as project.sbt. Any file name.sbt will work. You can call it build.sbt, blah blah.sbt, doesn't matter. The extension should be .sbt. So open up the file, and what you can do is you can type in contents that you want to try. So you have to fix a name, you got to resolve all the kind of libraries that you want. So what I'm going to do here is just copy a bit of code here. So let me explain. The name of the project is Spark, the version is 1, the Scala that I'm going to use is 2.12.3. The Spark, which is the latest one that I've installed, as you've seen from the installation file, is 2.4. I'm writing the equivalent resolvers. I'm putting on all the dependent libraries. We are good to go here. So I'm going to save this and close it. So you can verify if the file is saved. Yes, it's saved. So what I do is I start a terminal from this window. So I'm going to say right click, open in terminal. So if I want to know what's the present working directory, I say pwd. That shows that the present working folder is /home/Cloudera/workspace Spark demo. Now what I got to do is I got to make sure that this is a Eclipse generated project, right? So I'm going to say sbt Eclipse. So the moment I give this command, you can see that it basically generates workspace, other kind of related files, and also creates referenced libraries for me. So it's going to get all the libraries from the cloud. It is going to store it in a local file. So that's going to take a little bit of time. So once it is done, you will see that the Scala project is built and it is properly pointing to the setup libraries. So you can see that it's building the files. So you can see that files are being generated in this folder. There is this target, which I never created. There's this project file, which I never created. So once all this is done, it usually gives me the message successfully created Eclipse project. So Spark demo is ready. So the next thing is for me to import it into the Eclipse. So let me close these folders and files, and now I want to import the project into Eclipse workspace. So I'm going to say file, import. In the general tab, I have existing project into workspace. I click on next. So here I got to pick the folder name. So I'm going to pick Spark demo because that's the project I'm trying to create now. So I say okay, and I say finish. So let's see how the setup runs. So as you can see, Spark demo is a project that is created. It is pointing to Scala 2.12. It is pointing to other kind of reference libraries. It's pointing to Java 8. It has got a source folder, but can you see the difference? Here the source folder has a package image and this one doesn't have. That's because the source folder is not being recognized by the Eclipse. So how do I make it recognize? I select the file, I right click, and I say properties, build path, add the folder source into the source file. So I say apply and close. It gets initialized. And what I can do is I can create any kind of Spark code and then see how my code works here. So let me create a project called demo because I'm trying to demo Spark code here. So demo. The next thing I do is right click. I say new Scala object, right? So normally I can simply say object or class, but I'm trying to always do object with a main class. So I'm going to call this a Scala object. So it's a simple demo. So Spark demo will do. Spark demo is fine, right? I mean, anything is fine. So I'm going to say finish. So that's going to create a class. So you remember I created a file called test.txt. So I'm going to make a word count of it, right? So that was my original intention. So I'm going to write a few lines of code. So I'm not going to walk you through the code. I'll just copy the code here so that you can see that I'm picking up Cloudera's test.txt. I'm counting the lines. I'm going to use 2 CPUs. I can increase that to 3 if I want. And then you can see that it is not able to recognize libraries. So go to source and say organize import. It picks up the right libraries and your errors are gone. So you can run the application as run as Scala application. So that should start the cloud. It submits the job to the Spark. So there are many things happening here, and then it says it can't find the file text.txt. Let me check. I call it as test here, and I'm trying to work it as text.txt. What a silly mistake. So I'll say test.txt. So I can either come back and do it, or you can see that there is a shortcut created here. I can run that. So this time it's able to pick the file. There is no errors, as you can see, and it basically counts to 12 lines, which is true, right? 10, 11, 12, so 12 lines. So that's basically for us to ensure that the Spark codes work. The rest of it will be handled by the other lecturers on individual workshops. Thank you. I think this is all you need to understand regarding starting up and using the image. So see you in the classrooms. Good day.